Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and at long last, here we are with our mega review of LEGO Space 2024. Specifically the LEGO City Space sets, but let's be real, they basically are their own theme. Now, space is a major point of focus for LEGO this year. From Technic to Friends to Dreams and City, LEGO has been putting out a ton of LEGO space sets, but these are the most fleshed out, and I cannot wait to get into all the details of these incredible sets because LEGO Space is so back. And so, let's dive into a mega review of the minifigures, the sets, the designs, what I like best, what I feel is missing, and just all the details of this incredible brand new LEGO Space wave. Okay, so this is the incredible LEGO City Space 2024 January wave. Across the wave, there are 8 different sets, technically 7 because the 8th is a polybag, which I cannot for the life of me find, all across different price points, age ranges, and scales of builds. Set number 60428 is the Space Construction Mech, which retails for $11 US, 10 euros, and comes with 140 pieces, is the smallest one. Then we move on to set number 60429, Spaceship and Asteroid Discovery, which is a 4+ set that retails for $20 or 20 euros at 126 pieces, but again, it is a 4+ set, so many of those pieces are larger ones. The next one is 60430 Interstellar Spaceship, retailing for $20 US, 20 euros, and coming with 240 pieces, notably designed by Aaron Newman, who previously competed on LEGO Masters. Next up is 60431 Space Explorer, Rover, and Alien Life, with 311 pieces. This retails for $35 US or 30 euros. Next is 60432 Command Rover and Crane Loader. That is this large wheeled vehicle right here with a bit of foliage included as well, which retails for $85 US or 70 euros, a pretty significant price discrepancy there at $758. And then we get to the two really big ones. 60433, which is in many ways the icon of the wave, is the Modular Space Station, retailing for $110 US or 100 euros, with 1,097 pieces, making it one of the most interesting, completely interconfigurable LEGO Modular Space Station sets we've ever gotten. And lastly, we have 60434, this guy right here, which is Space Base and Rocket Launchpad. At 1,422 pieces, this retails for $135 US or 140 euros. Altogether, this is the entirety of the LEGO Space 2024 wave, and boy do I have a lot to say. We're actually going to start off with the minifigures first and move on to the sets because I feel like the minifigures definitely deserve a lot of special attention compared to the sets themselves. As we get into the minifigures, one thing that I do want to note is one of the coolest things that this line of sets does is that much like when folks are growing up and even today in the fandom, we assign different roles to the different classic space astronauts, like LEGO sometimes would do in comics, they've made that explicitly clear in the design of all of the minifigures and the sets, what minifigures do what. The ones with these large power armor suits are mech pilots and crane operators, and they go out into space and do heavy-duty work. The green ones are mostly researchers, because a lot of the green ones are interior on the inside of the space station. The dark green one is a special version of the researcher that actually goes outside the space station to repair satellites, and almost all the pilots are light blue, which is really cool because they have different designations to them. One of them has a dark blue outfit because that is a solo pilot as well. She can fly around in her own jetpack, and it seems like even for the rovers, sometimes scientists will go out and pilot the rovers, but for the most part, rovers are predominantly driven and vehicles are mostly driven by the blue outfitted characters. Of course, there is a Space Admiral, which is one of the best things about this line that really harkens back to Space Police 3 and stuff like that, where we had one leader of all the space factions, which was really, really cool. And overall, the minifigure design for all across the entire theme is remarkably well done, with a lot of thought put into the different roles of all the characters. Let's go ahead and remove all the minifigures from the vehicles so we can take a look at the minifigures all at once. Here's a closer look at all of the different minifigures included across the multiple different space sets. There is, of course, one Admiral, a ton of different support workers in terms of the heavy-duty engineers, one specialized one, which seems to be a bit of a minor with a dark orange helmet instead of the flame yellowish-orange, a ton of engineers, one of which has a dark green helmet, which is better suited for external outdoor space stuff, as well as a ton of light blue-suited pilots, plus one with a dark blue helmet, which also is meant to be used outside of the vacuum of space. To me, this is a really cool way of signifying different branches of the organization. You have the engineers maybe being led by one of them in dark green, you have all the pilots being led by one of them in dark blue, and you have all of these special heavy-duty workers being led by one of them with the dark orange, and finally all being headed up by the Space General or Admiral in gold here. Alongside the minifigures are several different robots that help them out with the tasks, which you can see here are also themed across the different types of factions, a heavy-duty one, pilot ones, as well as an engineer one. And there even is a host of alien figures. They're not really figures, they're kind of just alien creatures here, utilizing the crown element in lime green recolored, as well as some larger ones as well, which are very cute, and interestingly enough, are shared across the LEGO Friends line as well, suggesting a shared universe amongst all the different factions. I'm going to start by zooming in on the minifigures themselves though, because these are some of the most interesting ones to come out of a classic or LEGO Space revamp line in a long time, starting off of course with the Admiral. Compared to a lot of the other figures, the Admiral is actually fairly basic. He doesn't have any printing on the legs, but he makes up for it with a fully gunmetal gray torso and leg assembly. The torso is really cool looking with the classic Space logo with gold and black outlined around it. I can definitely see this being useful in other sci-fi LEGO things. The back of the torso is pretty simple, just some black and gold designs, but it looks really good, and they've recolored the 2019 LEGO City Space helmet in gold and black, which looks so good. Underneath the black visor is an older, kind of elderly face here, just one print on the front of the face, but I think that works totally well for the Space Admiral, and this is a really cool design. I can definitely see this weaving into a lot of people's headcanons and theories about how all of the classic space factions are linked, and this is such a good minifigure, and I even love how they gave him a cane in the form of the gold Harry Potter wand, just making him feel that much more regal. And finally, to me, the thing that makes this feel the most like classic space are the epaulets. The fact that he actually has these, much like the original Space Police 1 and 2 minifigures and some of the older LEGO Space Admirals, really does make this feel like it fits within the world of classic LEGO original space themes, which honestly makes me think that this should have been a theme on its own and not just under City, because, let's face it, these really don't have anything to do with City whatsoever. Moving onwards, we'll take a look at the pilot leader here. This one is actually a special type of outfit. All of the minifigures share the same torso and leg printings, but they do have different colored arms and helmets, and of course different face prints as well. This is really cool because this minifigure has a constellation tattoo on the side of her face, which just makes her stand out as that much more special. One of my favorite details about the space minifigure in general, which thankfully is visible behind the helmet itself. You have this nice jetpack on the back, which is powered by an energy cell, more on these energy cells later, as well as wings which can be used to actually sustain flight within the atmosphere or in the void of space as well. These standard pilots are basically equipped with these backpack elements, originally used for LEGO Star Wars jetpack troopers, but I think they work very well here in the azure color. They're just really cool looking. I love the design of these space minifigures. The orange classic space logo is fantastic, and these ones are used for pilots, although the classic space fan in me kind of wishes they were red, because I always associate red with pilots now that I think most of the classic space pilots are red, but I think azure is a totally good one as well, and honestly works better with the vehicles. Moving on from that, we can take a look at the leader of the engineers or the technicians here, or the scientists. This one has the dark green markings on it for the helmet and the arms, which look really great. These pieces are printed. I guess they're supposed to be solar panels or some sort of a satellite addition onto the character itself. And the character is using a green backpack element, which is a really cool piece they recently introduced for the previous wave of LEGO City Space, but is used in green here for the first time, and I'm really getting some strong Galaxy Squad feels from this, particularly with the custom headpiece. I noticed that a lot of these specialized commander units use custom headpieces, like this one has a special eye patch or maybe kind of a Kopaka-like remote thing, binoculars on the eye, which works really well for the character. Otherwise, the other minifigures are fairly simple. Some of them have this green backpack with solar panels on the back, presumably for charging up their stuff, but other ones just are pretty much normal without any sort of attachment. In fact, almost all of the scientists do have this backpack piece, except for the one that does appear in the 4+ set, because typically for 4+ sets, they do not have the backpack attachments. So it makes sense to not have it for that one, but I think it's really cool how all of the other ones that are the engineers or scientists have this specialized backpack, almost like a power suit. And then you get to even more suits here. This is actually a brand new set of molds created for LEGO City Space. We're going to start off with this one right here, who is kind of the commander or the leader of all of them. He has a dark orange helmet, a brand new face as well with a lightning bolt, scar or tattoo on the side, which is really, really cool. I love the inclusion of that. I also like how this is one of the first times that officially they have mounted the clear visor element upside down. The last time they used it was for the Space Miner collectible minifigure, so it is a very cool look, almost makes us feel like Halo or Mass Effect-esque, which is definitely something that extends throughout all of the different vehicles in this line, and one of the arms is gunmetal gray to allow him to wield this drill element, which is very cool. Moving onwards, some of these standard outfits here are these ones, which you can see they have these backpacks on the back and they have the special power suit armor to them. I love the helmet designs for these. The helmets are really cool, and one of them even has a specialized mixel joint attachment on the back to allow it to have Doc Ock style additional arms, which is very, very cool looking, and I just love again how differentiated all the factions are. Overall, I am a huge fan of the way all of the minifigures turned out. These are some of the best original LEGO-themed minifigures that we've gotten in a long time, and I especially love how all of the commander units have a special head printing on them, which makes them feel that much more special. Having 3 different almost generals and then 1 space admiral commanding all of them is really, really cool, and I just love the inclusion of so much storytelling in a theme that normally doesn't do a ton of original storytelling, and instead has you invent your own stories. Let's go ahead and set aside all of the minifigures. You can see we get quite a lot of them in just collecting all of the sets, and focus in on the sets themselves, because there's a lot to cover here. Setting aside the aliens and minifigures, I want to first start off with some of these smaller sets and work our way upwards. This set right here is again $11. It is the miner Mech here. This one is basically used to mine different materials, and before we get into the individual bits and pieces of all of the different sets themselves, one thing that I do want to point out is that the very cool thing that this theme does that actually shares itself with LEGO Friends is that each of the vehicles are powered by these special energy cells. They are pieces that are colored in the transparent opalescent satin purple color, and they have a print on the energy battery, which is very cool, and this is something consistent across the entire wave. In fact, you can see on the actual foliage elements, there are 2 different types of fuel cells. They have these transparent opalescent purple elements, and then here they have the transparent opalescent pink elements, which can be used to craft fuel cells across the entirety of the wave. For instance, the Interstellar Spaceship here uses a fuel cell right here as a separate component to be able to power up the vehicle itself. Every single one of the spaceships does use it, so for instance, even the Juniors one right here does utilize a power cell on the back, which can be easily removed. It's a really cool piece that makes all these sets seem congruent with each other, which is just so interesting to see there. And yeah, even right down to like the random trucks and vehicles. This random side build of a truck sure has a power cell on the back of it, and the consistency with using the power cells to power literally everything is so cool. And I love how basically every single vehicle, no matter how big or how small, is using some sort of a combination of the power cells themselves. In fact, when you look at the large Rover here, this even has a more heavy-duty version of the power cells. This is kind of a 4-pack version of it, which really allows it to sustain powering a vehicle that big, and I love just how much thought went into making that a consistent element across all of the LEGO City Space sets. But wait, it's not just in the LEGO City Space sets. Take the LEGO Friends space rocket here. This one is from a separate LEGO Friends set, and on the inside, not only is the inside powered, the small rover is powered by that same fuel cell right there, but the spaceship itself is also powered by the fuel cells, which you can see when you actually remove the different components inside of the cockpit. The fuel cells are present across the entirety of the LEGO space lineup, cross-theme, which is really special and very cool that they actually managed to factor all of that in. Now, going backwards to the individual sets, I do want to focus in on this one in particular. For $11, you get a small style of mech, and we are used to getting small $10 style mechs here, but this is just another one that you can use to mine. I actually really love the energy of the set. It's really giving me Power Miner vibes, like the Mech Miner vibe from Power Miner. That one was a really good one to get. You can use this to kind of punch the rocks apart or use it as a drill, and it's a pretty simple build. It's just a mixel joint style mech, but one that works very well, and you can see there's nice mechanical detail included with these Among Us pieces on the knees there, as well as the new color, which is something I didn't even mention. Yeah, to unite all of these space sets, they've introduced a new color, which is kind of this bright orange color, which is a mix between red and orange, which really works very well for this particular line of sets. Overall, very, very happy with the way this first mech turns out, and this is just the beginning. Moving onwards from that, we actually have a 4+ set. Now, typically 4+ sets are some of the weakest sets in the wave, and honestly, I feel like the 4+ ones are never really that exciting. But I gotta say, this 4+ set is actually really good. Like, this spaceship, if you don't look at it too closely, this feels like it could be a side build on a regular standard set, and I'm really impressed by just how well it stacks up next to some of the other spaceships in the line. This is definitely the simplest one we've done. This is Spaceship and Asteroid Discovery, retailing for $20, which comes with these two land components and the spaceship itself, but I really like how all of these are printed. They have these special curved elements that are printed thanks to it being 4+. Yes, even the 4+ set has a power cell powering it in the back, and you have the windscreens in the new trans black color introduced just last year, which is very, very cool. It is just using one big element for the spaceship base, which is something we're used to with 4+ sets for now, but I actually think it really works. Like, this is a completely workable spaceship despite it being 4+. The main bits and pieces here are honestly not super interesting, but again, I just really appreciate the consistency of taking a crystal and using it to charge up the power cell here, so that actually adds on to the play itself. And this is just a simple crane, definitely not the most interesting thing here, but it's cool that even inside the rocks you can find some of these special power crystals, which you can actually try to claim for yourselves. Moving down to the next sets here, I want to talk about one of my favorite sets in the wave, and that is this one right here. For $20, we get this phenomenal spacecraft, and this remarkably looks like the classic space logo spaceship. I'm sure that was definitely intentional, but this, despite how small it is hiding a secret. As you can see, when you actually take a power cell here, place it onto the ship itself and push down, you can activate light speed mode, activating these special energy components on the back of the spaceship, making it feel like it's moving that much faster through space. This is a spaceship that feels very sleek, it feels very fast, and huge kudos to Aaron Newman for designing not just this, but the larger space station as well. Again, a fellow LEGO Masters person designed this, which is really cool, and you even get a specialized printed component in the cockpit for the controls there, which makes it feel even more special. I love the recoloring of the Lightyear cockpit in trans black, which is really great, and for $20, this may be one of the best valued sets of the entire wave. You get a killer play feature that works so well and so seamlessly. It is actually something that the designer posts on Instagram was one of the trickiest things to figure out, was to how to make that function so compact and also very easy to build in a set like this that is geared towards a younger audience. But this is so cool, and it is so swooshable. I love the way that this looks, and it easily is one of my favorite sets of the wave. Moving on from that, we have the Space Explorer, Rover, and Alien Life. Setting that aside, you can see that this is what the set comes with. It comes with a couple of minifigures that fit within the Space Rover, and this, oh my goodness, this is giving me strong LEGO classic space energy. Whether it be a Mars mission rover or a Life on Mars rover, this is paying homage to what has come before while paving its own path and doing its own thing. The really cool thing is that you actually have full-on suspension on the wheels, so you can have it go over rough terrain, which is really cool. There's maybe a little bit too much friction here. They are attaching this via standard Technic pins and not frictionless pins, so when it's rolling, it definitely, like, you have to press down on it to actuate it, but I think overall it works pretty well. The terrain build is alright. The one thing I do appreciate is that they did try to make each of the terrain builds fit within a system. The octagonal pieces here can all kind of be connected up with each other to make it feel like one bit of a larger whole, so that is cool, but of course the main focus is on the Rover. For $35, this feels pretty fair, and it even has a full-on interior where you can see there's seating space for the two minifigures, and there's even room for one of these smaller Rover robots to come out of the back, whereas you can see here, a back panel in the back of the Rover opens up like so, and you can take the small Rover, which is this one right here, place it inside there, close it up, and it is ready to be deployed. Again, this is a really clever piece of engineering, piece of work. I love the way that this rover looks, and honestly, this is just the beginning. Like, they only get better from here, and this is already one of my favorite LEGO classic rover space sets in a long time. I love the usage of the bright orange on the hubcaps, adding that much needed splash of color, and the color scheme overall is really solid. Sand blue, orange, white, and black is a really interesting color scheme that feels spacey, but also feels very sci-fi in the way that it's done, and just a hint of gold when it comes to hydraulics, again keeping consistent throughout the entire wave. Gold is only used when it comes to hydraulics, like you can see in the larger Rover there's a hint of gold for the hydraulics there, and even on the space station they use gold. It just shows that so much planning went into creating these sets. And of course, you do have two sets of power cells on the side here, which you can place in like so, adding on to the play feature of the collectible power cells. It's just so good. It's honestly all I have to say. These sets are really cool. Next up is the Command Rover and Crane Loader. This is almost like a Megacore Magnetizer-esque set, like the Space Bus. It's a really cool looking rover. This feels very heavy duty, and this does come with a little bit of terrain as well, where you can see there's an action feature where you can kind of take this back part, push it open, and reveal an energy crystal on the inside, which is interesting because this is a pretty unique energy crystal that we haven't really seen pop up in some of the other sets, so I'm quite curious if they're planning to do more with that in future waves of this. Please, LEGO, give us more waves of these. I really want more, but we'll see how well they do. But yeah, the main focus of this is on the rover, and I love the way this feels. It is so playable, and typically, when LEGO does the plastic rover wheels, sometimes they are hit or miss and make it feel toyish, but thankfully they do make this feel very heavy duty by adding a lot of weight to the wheels themselves. Adding in large pieces to actually feel like the wheels are very clunky and more mechanically detailed than just standard LEGO pieces are definitely something that do wonders for making this vehicle feel more realistic while still retaining that sci-fi look and feel. On the front here, honestly, I'm a little mixed on the front. I like the usage of the Technic panel element here, which is a really good parts usage, but then the front just feels very flat. I'm not really sure how I would have changed it, but maybe if it was like sloping downwards, it would have been better. But if you look at it from the top, it generally is okay, and this does have a crane on the back, so you can kind of rotate the crane every which way that you want. This one is mounted on frictionless joints, so you can move it all the way around. They recolored even the LEGO roller coaster elements in the bright orange color to add mechanical detail to the sides here, and you can even open this up. There's space for two. There's one driving it and there's one doing some sort of technical readout. You can go inside the ship itself, and what's very cool is that when you twist this lever right here, this knob, you can move this upwards, allowing you to take this entire component out. And that brings us to this. What is this, you might ask? Well, this is a piece that they introduced in 2019 to allow you to basically attach different space modules onto each other, and that is the entire point of this, because not only does this theme use the space modules, which you can use on the larger space station, which you can use on the modules included on this spaceship as well, but it even is compatible with the LEGO Friends rocket. Yes, the LEGO Friends rocket uses these very same modules, so if you want to make a bigger ship, you can combine them like that, and voila, all of the pieces stick together. And that's not all. In March, LEGO Technic will also be allowing these modules to be compatible with each other, allowing you to have an entire system just using this interconnectivity of this piece that is not even a new piece. It's a piece they introduced in 2019 and just colored in the new color to make it more apparent what you can do with it. LEGO is really pushing this hard. It almost feels like they're marketing it as a brand new piece, but it's not. Like, this piece has been around. That being said, there are a number of new pieces they did make for this line of sets. More on that later, but you can sort of see some of them here. The Interstellar Starship has these special angled pieces. It hopefully means that LEGO will do this for a while. Inside here is a nice control panel area where you can see that you're analyzing the crystals. Nothing super crazy going on there, but it is nice to see that splash of color inside the module itself. And overall, this is a really good looking rover. Honestly, probably one of the only sets this wave where I feel it's a little overpriced. 70 euros is pretty good for this. 758 pieces, 70 euros, relates to 77 US dollars, which I think is pretty fair. 85 US dollars is a little more than fair for me. I think that is a little bit too expensive. So for 85, I don't really know if this is worth it, but if you can get it in the Eurozone or get it on a sale, I'd recommend it, and it's still a really, really great set. But now we can move on to my personal favorite set of the entire wave, and that is this bad boy right here. Now this is the Modular Space Station. and it is truly modular in every sense of the word. Every single one of these modules is mounted alongside these large-scale Technic ring elements, which were introduced for the bucket wheel excavator but work perfectly well for something like this. There are satellite modules, there are habitat modules. Every single one of these is meant to represent a different facet of living life in space, and it's really, really cool how they do that. But one of my favorite things is that you can pretty much go crazy with the different configurations you want to do. You want to remove these two pieces here and mount the food module on the top? Well, you can do that. And then you can just stick these onto the side right here, like so. And this gives you a pretty different look and feel for it that just offers a different configuration. But the coolest thing for me about the set is that you can take all the modules and turn it into a space train. Now, I don't know if space train is the official way that they want to say this, but let's be real. It's a space train. Again, you can separate these out from every single one of the modules. This is the ring that holds them all together, and you can take the modules and combine them together to form one large vehicle, which is just so, so cool. First off, you have one module here, which is the pilot module. This almost reminds me of the Subnautica sub-bus. I remember in like Subnautica Below Zero, they had these different modules you could make. But this one right here is super simple. You just open it up, close it up like so. I really wish, though, that one of my biggest complaints is that, unfortunately, for the vast majority of these pieces, as you can see, the airlocks lead to nothing. Like, you cannot move in between the different pieces. And that is a big disappointment for me, especially because a lot of these sets seem to be designed that, at least the pieces are designed such that you are supposed to be able to move in between them. Like, for instance, this one, which comes in the space transport, does have a fully connected interior, so you can have minifigures pass through them. The same goes for the rocket ship that we're going to take a look at in the other set as well. This also, once you remove this panel, has an interconnected interior where you can actually have minifigures pass through here, but for whatever reason for the space station, they decided not to let you do that. I'm not really sure why, actually. I mean, maybe it was because some of it is exposed to the vacuum of space, but I mean, none of this is airtight, so I don't really know what they were trying to do with that, but it is a little unfortunate. I kind of wish you were able to do it, because even when you have these cover elements, like they have the Super Mario elements to cover up the end of it, it's still covered on one side, so I don't really know why they did that. I would have much preferred it if they just had a different way of mounting these to allow you to let minifigures pass through, but that is really my only complaint about this set. First off, here we have a living module, so we have someone's baseball hat there, you can put your helmet there when you're sleeping. They did come with hair pieces for a lot of the characters as well, so that is very cool. You can connect that up to the space train here. Next up, you have this module, which is a food module. You can have a sandwich, have some coffee or whatnot, survive in the vacuum of space that way. So you can take that and hook that up in the long train component here. So that is really cool. And again, I love how you can take basically every module and do this. Like, you can do this to every single one. Next up here, we have a mechanics bench module. So this one is mostly used to monitor the base on the ground, which is really cool, kind of monitoring communications between the two. I love how much synergy there is between all of these. Like, you can see this module talking to the base module, talking to all sorts of different things. So you can take the Technic pins and attach that one up right here, and then you have another module here. This one here is predominantly used for some analysis. This is kind of analyzing the different crystal elements and the foliage elements, even analyzing some bacteria that may have been found on the surface. It is really cool how you can factor that in here. So you can take this module, put it on like so, but that's not all, because you can still do more. You can then take the module from the Rover, take that right here, which is again another crystal analysis one. You can take two Technic pins and attach that onto this here. Now this is really like a crazy, crazy space transport here. This is so, so cool. And that is not all, because you can still take this spaceship here, which we'll take a look at in a second, which is part of the main base, take this module, remove it from the spaceship here, which also does act as a perfectly fine spaceship on its own, like so, and then take that module, which has a bit of a habitat area in it with some, this is actually a crystal analysis or battery charging area. That's pretty cool. You're taking raw crystals, raw energy, feeding them into pieces using the special new piece introduced for the collectible minifigure Beast minifigure. So you can put that there. And if you really want to go crazy, if you really want to keep going, you can take the LEGO Friends spaceship module right here and stick it onto the end as well, which is a rover deployment module, habitat module, and drone deployment module all at once. So that's a very compact module there. You stick that on, you've got another segment to the train here, and then you can actually have a satellite positioning being added on the back here. Take 2 more Technic pins, and you can either have this on the back of it as well, so you can kind of stick that on like so, or you can choose to attach on another component like the speeder launch component right here. The possibilities are literally endless. Oh my goodness. Look at this. I probably need more Technic pins, but oh my gosh. This is this is pretty crazy. That is wild. I need to get a photo of this. That is pretty insane. And that is just by combining like 3 sets. And even if like you took out 3 of the modules, it's still crazy long, and you can just do all sorts of wild things with this. That is so cool, and that really showcases the power of the system of play here. And that is why the Modular Space Base is probably one of my favorite sets of the Wave, because you can do crazy stuff like this. Like, this is just pure insanity here. But now we can move on to the largest set of the Wave, which is the command post here, once I actually get all these pieces back to where they belong. Finally, this is the largest set of the Wave. It is set number 60434 Space Base and Rocket Launchpad for $135 or 140 euros. It comes with a good assortment of different things, including a terrain bit, you have a truck that can be used to transport the energy crystals and foliage, and even a launching station, plus of course the main feature of the set being this gigantic crane and space base. Now to me, this compared to a lot of the other LEGO space bases is just alright. Maybe my expectations have been significantly raised by the rest of the Wave that made me want this to be a lot better than it actually is. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing really that bad with it, it's perfectly serviceable, but it definitely doesn't have that much unique character compared to some of the other space bases we've gotten in the past. And I honestly would say that I actually kind of prefer the previous space base that we got, the last one in the City Space lineup, compared to this one, because that one had very interesting kind of bubble dome canopies and had a very unique overall layout, whereas this one just feels like more of the same. However, this doesn't even necessarily feel that much like a base to me. It feels a lot better as an outpost or some sort of a remote crane working system, which definitely makes me like it a lot better. I feel that maybe LEGO could come back in like a year or maybe half a year and give us a fully fleshed out space command base, which would be a lot more interesting than this one, whereas this feels like a command outpost, which is maybe one of the bases they have, but not the main one. I certainly am very excited to see what LEGO continues to do with this, and this is still a really, really solid set, and I definitely want to say there's a lot of things that you can do with it. I'm going to start off with some of the smaller stuff first. We have a little bit of foliage and terrain here, which you can use to uncover some maybe viruses, bacteria, or organisms living in the water, but you can also kind of cause this place to explode to reveal the energy crystals hidden behind. Once you actually harvest the energy crystals, you can use this truck, which, yes, does have power cells in the back, to transport them on the back, which is a nice little detail. The truck is alright. It feels very much like a standard LEGO truck build from like Space Police 3 or something, but you can take this piece and put it on the back, and you can use that to transport it one way or the other, and then load it up on the crane itself. Before we get to the main building, I do want to highlight the Launchpad piece right here. This is meant to launch one of these spaceships up into outer space. You have a very interesting power cell here because this one is actually utilizing the pink and purple colorations. Maybe they need a little bit of extra juice for this particular one, so you do have that extra piece here, and that just launches it outwards like so. I love the usage of the triangular elements to act as the kind of arrows pointing it outwards, and the spaceship itself is pretty cool. This is another very solid spaceship from the theme that is kind of shaped like the classic space logo. You have some engine intakes right here which look really interesting, and I love how this one is a carrier. The shaping of it reminds me very much of the LEGO Mars Mission Rover spaceship, which carried a little motorcycle on the back, and this is kind of a similar concept. You can carry a module on the back as well, or make this carry a much bigger space train. In fact, you can use this as the front of a different space train, so that is really cool if you want to do that. And of course, you can actually remove this to see on the inside, which is really nice, and I wish the space base also did that as well. Moving onwards, there's not much else to see here. One thing I want to note is that you can actually remove the cockpit and reveal 2 different power cells integrated into the build itself, which is quite nice. I like how they were able to factor that into the build. And then we can take a look at the main base itself. Setting that aside, there's actually quite a lot going on here, and there's definitely more than meets the eye. First of all, again, love the consistency of the power cells being used to power every aspect of this particular build. You have a sliding airlock door style here, which isn't really a true airlock because it just kind of leads right in, but you do have a sliding door. It isn't really even attached to anything, it kind of just sits there, so if you hold it upside down, this will just come off, but I do like the pattern on it. It feels appropriately spacey. Now, the cool thing is that you can actually rotate these outwards, so you can move these out and you can reveal the interior of the ship itself. On the inside there is a rotating section here dedicated to housing each of the people's space gear, so if you want to take like the backpacks for instance, you can take this particular worker's backpack and place that onto the stand here. You can stick that here and allow the actual workers to come in and get suited up for the day. So that is a really nice feature. I love how they were able to factor in so much detail into the interior space. It's a very realistic thing that they would need to have, so I really do appreciate how they even have backpack storage on there, which is pretty crazy. I can't even think of another LEGO space set that dedicated this much detail to the crew suiting up. But on one side here you have what appears to be a bit of a cafeteria, so you have like an alien chef logo, you have some water dispensers or some sauce dispensers, as well as a sandwich, as well as some nice little bits and pieces of music playing here, and all of these are rotatable, so you can rotate these back and forth depending on however you want to have it displayed. Moving onwards to the other section right here, this is actually another style of airlock which can be opened outwards like this to allow you to walk out, but there's some information on the actual human body here. I like how there's like a poo indicator there as well, and you also have a microscope so you can see and study different pieces that you pick up. Overall, the base structure is quite nice. Again, gotta love the consistency of using the gold as the piston elements. And then we can work our way on upwards to the top part here, which also has some different designs of its own. The entire part can be lifted outwards so you can see what is on the inside of the base itself. There's just a pair of different seats as well as a set of different monitors which you can use to monitor the different things going on in the space realm itself. Now, closing this up here, let's go ahead and step backwards. Overall, it's a fairly standard kind of crane tower base sort of thing. It's definitely not the most unique design, but I do like how it does have these large stanchions attached like pistons on the side of it. I just feel like maybe for a space base they could do something even cooler and better than this, and I'm really hoping that in the future they will actually move on to doing that. And with that, we have summed up pretty much everything there is to see with the brand new LEGO City Space Wave. It almost feels like a brand new theme of its own, which is a good thing. I say that in the best way possible, that this does not feel like LEGO City. This feels like a separate LEGO space theme, and we do know that LEGO oftentimes will call a theme or market a theme under the City brand to make sure it sells well, especially if it is a somewhat risky seeming original concept like this. But I don't know, I feel like these sets would do equally well if they were just a space sub-theme, but I guess having that City name just gives it that extra oomph for marketing that they really want to push forwards. Now, this wave does almost everything I would want it to do. There is a smaller scale rover, there is a larger scale transport rover, there is a large base, there is a huge space station which can be positioned up in space itself, so you can kind of use this for the outer space explorations. There are smaller spaceships, smaller speeder craft that you can use. There's even a mech, but you know what this is missing? We are missing a mothership. And no, I don't really count the modular space base as a mothership because that feels more like an International Space Station style base. I don't really see this like flying through the skies. You mostly see it hovering and whatnot. So I feel like the biggest thing missing here is a flagship set, like a flagship spaceship, much like we would get back in the day, whether it be Space Police 3 with that phenomenal build, whether it be the Deep Freeze Defender for Ice Planet, or even going all the way back to the original Space Police stuff. Every single one, like the Mission Commander, had a big spaceship, and I feel like that is the one thing that is feeling noticeably missing from this wave, where it has literally everything you would want in a space wave other than a big command flagship. And that is why I sincerely hope that LEGO will continue to use this space sub-theme in the future. I hope that this is not just a one and done. In fact, they've invested a lot of money into new molds. They have a new system for the way the modules work. I am hopeful that LEGO will not just use this for one wave and then move on to other stuff and then maybe give us a new style of LEGO City Space stuff in like 2-3 years. I am really hoping that this will become a perennial part of the LEGO City ecosystem, and we will continue to get it as often as we get stuff like Police and Fire, because we get Police and Fire like every January. I think every January would be pretty perfect to get a new city wave that builds off of this. We'll have to see how well these sets do. I'm sure that some of that will also depend on the profitability and viability of these sets themselves, but overall, I am personally very, very pleased with the direction of these sets. I think it is a remarkable return to form for LEGO City Space and for LEGO Space in general, where it again doesn't really even feel like LEGO City. It feels like LEGO Space. It feels like LEGO Space is back, and that is really what it is. I'm super happy with these, and I'm so curious for folks down in the comments. Let me know which ones are your favorite sets, which ones are you really excited to pick up, and if you have gotten them already, what has been your experience with these LEGO City Space sets, which, in my opinion, are the best original LEGO-themed space sets we have gotten in years, maybe even decades. So it's very cool of LEGO to do this, and I cannot wait to see if there is more to come. That's all for now, and I hope you enjoyed this mega review. Alright, and with that, we have summed up our look at the brand new LEGO City Space 2024 sets. Again, I really hope that LEGO will continue to make these in the future. They are phenomenal sets, they all are really, really cool, and I can't wait to see if LEGO will maybe give us a big space mothership at some point in the future. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to DuckBricks. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming away very soon. Thanks so much, and bye for now.